This is because it was in a Republican primary with conservatives.
Looking at some of the attacks coming from the Democrats on Bain Capital specifically, and your presidential campaign, would you have done anything different in terms of the arguments you framed against
I think it did not help us. I mean, to be candid, maybe this is because it was in a Republican primary with conservatives, but I think it clearly did not help us. I think people thought, first of all, it sounded like Obama. It sounded like a left-wing critique of all free enterprise.
And we have definitely been seeing that from the Obama campaign, and we're going to get into some of those anti-free enterprise attacks that they're making on the Romney or the Ryan family right now. They couldn't get anything on Paul Ryan, so now they're looking at his wife and his brother. Joining me right now, former Speaker of the House and presidential contender Newt Gingrich. Sir, good afternoon to you. Thanks so much for joining me.
I'm always glad to join you. You always have a great show.
Well, thank you so much. Before we get into some of the nitty-gritty, I have to ask you, what do you have going on next? What are your next steps? We miss seeing you out there hammering the media.
We're doing a very exciting, what the Romney people have called Newt University from 10 to 12 every day at Tampa, and we're going to put together policy ideas, basically empowering our activists, our volunteers to win the argument both with the news media and with the Obama campaign. So that's a pretty big project we just have launched. Callista's going to launch her second Ellis the Elephant American History book. Last year she did Sweet Land of Liberty, which became a New York Times bestseller, in which Ellis the Elephant introduced 4 to 8-year-olds to American history. And this year in Land of the Pilgrim's Pride, Ellis is going to introduce 4 to 8-year-olds to the colonial period and take them to all 13 colonies. So she's been very busy. I have a novel with Bill Fortune called Victory at Yorktown. It's the third of our George Washington novels. It comes out in November. So we're staying pretty busy, and this may come as a little bit of a surprise to you. We're seriously talking about trying to find a way to do a television show together on a daily basis, but probably not a purely political show. I mean, we're not going to try to compete. I just heard Bill O'Reilly a minute ago on this show. We're not going to try to compete with Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, but we think that there's a space for a positive, optimistic show that really talks about life and talks about a lot of other things. And so we're looking at that as a very serious possibility.
Wow. Well, very good. Right when you first said that, I have to say my first thought was the Gingriches are going to do a reality show. That was the first thing
that maybe our reality as opposed to Jersey Shore. So
yes. Well, I have to ask you, because you've been out there hammering away for the Romney Ryan ticket, and it was probably over a year ago when there was a lot of discussion over what you had said about the Paul Ryan budget, and you had used the term right-wing social engineering, and now you say you're happy about the ticket, you're confident, you think it was a great choice. What caused you to change your mind about Paul Ryan?
But part of it is Paul Ryan. When I laid out my concern, which is very real, because he was at that time had a plan that was more decisively ending Medicare, and I thought that is a huge jump to take. He came back, listened, and one of the things I like about Paul is that he does listen to his critics. He takes them very seriously because he's trying to get to a solution, not an argument. And as a result, he worked with Ron Wyden and created the only bipartisan Medicare reform program that I know of, and it gives you the option of keeping traditional Medicare if that's what you want to do.
Right.
And so I thought he proved he was a real leader. He proved he valued thinking it through and getting it done right more than just his own opinion or his own attitude. And so I was very impressed. I'd known Paul a long time. Clista's actually known him longer. She knew him back when he was the intern for Bob Caston at the very beginning of his career. He came to Senator Bob Caston of Wisconsin as an intern, and Calista at that time was working for Congressman Steve Gunderson from Wisconsin. So there was a real kind of cheesehead connection. So she's just thrilled. She's watched him, mature into a remarkable leader and somebody who has great national potential. And I'm delighted that Mitt Romney came to understand that.
And he's been, I think, very well spoken in terms of defending his Medicare plan as well, because you know this, you've seen this from the Obama campaign. They're attacking him, saying that this is essentially all Paul Ryan wants to do is kill everyone's grandmas and deny them Medicare, which this doesn't change anything for anyone over age 55. It gives people a choice, as you said.
Yeah, and I think that you just said something else. Every conservative in the country needs to drive home. No, because I had a woman come up to me today at the Basilica where Callista sings, and we were there for the Mass for Mary. And the fact is, and this woman came up to me, she's 80 years old, and she said, please don't touch Social Security. And I said, anybody who is over 55 has no change, none. And she looked at me, she smiled, she said, this is how I learned she was 80. She smiled and she said, son, I'm well over 55. I'm 80 years old. And the woman next to her turned and said, yeah, and I'm 82. Oh. And the point I was making to them was any Democrat, whether it's Obama or Biden or any other hysterical Democrat, who tries to frighten people in their 80s is doing a total disservice to the United States because it is so profoundly untrue.
Right. And this is the party that's supposed to be completely pro-choice. One of the things that we saw you do very well during the presidential primary was go after the media, which I still think is the biggest hurdle to overcoming for victory in November. And on the subject of the Romney tax returns, I thought Paul Ryan did well saying that he was only going to release 2 years as well. You recently remarked about the president's college transcripts. What would you tell the Romney Ryan ticket to do whenever the media comes at them about these tax returns issues?
No, well, first of all, I think what Romney and Ryan have to do is what they are doing: focus on the big issues that matter. The fact is, most Americans care about their own taxes. Most Americans would like to have a job so they could pay taxes. And most Americans are willing to, I think, shrug off most of the hysteria of the left. Romney has been filing various financial disclosure forms since he first ran for governor in 2002. There's a ton of information available if somebody wants it. And we now know, for example, that Harry Reid just plain lies. I mean, Reid got on the floor of the Senate, made a series of charges for which he has no proof, no witness, can't produce anything. And I think that we're better off for Romney and Ryan to just say, look, we know they're going to play a lot of dirty politics because with their economic record, with their unemployment, with their deficits, with their failures, how can they possibly have a factual issue-oriented campaign? We are going to offer a factual issue-oriented campaign, and we're going to come back again and again with things that will work. And the choice is pretty dramatic. Oh, yeah. I think Romney stands for a prosperity based on a larger economy with more jobs, with a smaller government. I think Obama stands for a bigger government with a smaller economy and a lot fewer jobs. Now, that's the level choice we conservatives should be laying out for the American people. We're not just in this because we have some deep passion about the budget or some deep passion about a particular program. We're in this because we believe that there's absolute proof that socialism doesn't work.
Right.
And there's absolute proof that we can, in fact, develop the kind of future that is better for all of us.
And on developing, back in the 90s, you were right there at the forefront fighting for welfare reform. And I mean, it wouldn't have passed, it wouldn't have come together at all in the 90s without you. And how do you feel now, knowing that President Obama has taken steps to gut welfare reform, to remove that work requirement that was in that huge legislation that passed in the 90s?
Well, let me say, first of all, that I believe that we have to confront that he probably broke the law, because Section 407 of the Welfare Reform Act is very clear that no work requirement can be waived. And we wrote it that way because we so deeply distrust liberals. Remember, in 1996, when we were writing the bill, Barack Obama was a state senator who was opposed to welfare reform. Even when Bill Clinton agreed to sign the bill, half the Democrats in the House, 101 to 101, half of them voted against the welfare reform bill because they opposed the work requirement. And we knew if we made the work requirement optional, that every liberal governor in the country would waive it. So we deliberately wrote that it could not be waived by the president. It's one of the biggest things Bill Clinton didn't like about the bill and said he didn't like about it, that it was not waivable. Now along comes Obama, who is waiving something which the law says flatly, specifically, cannot be waived.
Wow.
That's straightforward.
And that would even create more problems for this campaign, because there's a lot of, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this last question I had for you. The discussion of this Priorities USA ad that came out, with Bill Burton, and the possible collusion with the Obama campaign. And I know you're familiar with this ad. You had Joe Soptic from GST Steel, and they tried to say that Mitt Romney was a murderer. He's dressed the exact same way in these ads. They look the exact same. This would be, obviously a campaign working with a super PAC, a violation of the law, but yet no one has asked this campaign about this. How do you take this issue? Are you familiar with this ad?
No, I'm not familiar with the ad.
Okay, yeah, there's the Priorities. Well, we can send you the link.
Supposedly they weren't going to release, but somehow magically got released?
Yeah, they didn't run the Priorities USA ad on television. It was just, they were going to. It just came out on the web, and I don't think they're going to air it on television at this point. But it was, they had this guy from GST Steel that was laid off several years after Romney left Bain, and he was dressed the exact same way in both of these ads. Looks like the exact same lighting, location, everything else. And they tried to say that there was no collusion. They were caught lying. The deputy campaign manager was caught lying about the ad, saying that, we didn't know Joe Soptic, and then all of a sudden audio appears where she held a conference call with him for Organizing for America. It sounds suspicious to me. I just wanted to get your take on it.
Well, first of all, it's very clear that there was collusion. It's very clear that, but I think this whole legal structure is a disaster. I mean, you have campaigns where one spouse works for the campaign, the other spouse works for a super PAC. They theoretically don't talk about it at home. Give me a break. I mean, nobody believes that.
Right.
And so I think what it does is it reduces everybody running for office to, in some ways, living in a gray area, which is a terrible way to have your political system work. I personally believe that the McCain-Feingold reforms and the reforms that preceded have been a disaster. And I think that we'd be much better off to have a very clean, simple law that says any American can give any amount of after-tax personal income if they report it that night on the Internet and if they give it to the candidate.
Right.
And then really rebuild the campaigns so that the ads you see have to have been approved by the candidate. And at that point, you're going to be in a world of much greater responsibility, because the candidates wouldn't run some of these ads.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, sir, I so appreciate you joining me today. Where can people find you online? Still the same website?
Well, the best if they go to GingrichProductions.com.
Excellent.
I Twitter, so you can sign up there on Twitter. We have a Facebook account. And I do a weekly newsletter that comes out of Human Events, but also comes from GingrichProductions.com. So we encourage people to go and sign up at GingrichProductions.com. That shows them both what Callista's doing and what I'm doing.
Excellent. Newt Gingrich,
right.
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Talk to you soon.
Take care.